Thank you very much. And I should really start by adjusting my title, because it's probably fair to say that I cover most of the 17th century, sort of leading towards 1700. And I should have added international to the title as well. But I just wanted to, I'll explain where this comes from, and hopefully that particular bit will come a bit clearer as well. I want to start by thanking everyone for inviting me. And when I first saw the title of the conference, like Steve, I made me think about the sort of the stage of early modern Scottish history and where we are in the field and why it matters, and of course current political development sort of adequate poignancy to this. And this is something I have thought about quite a bit, and especially while I was in exile in England at the University of Reading, but also now that I'm back here in Scotland, and also because I'm on research leave at the moment. I hope that you will allow me to indulge a bit in exploring some of the thoughts that I have about this, in particular in relation to some of my own research interests. So rather than discussing my latest research per se, I'd like to say something, and this is, it may be quite rambling, it may be a bit speculative, but it is something I intend to look into a bit further. So rather than say something specific about my current research, I'd like to talk about the relationship between two defining aspects, as I see them, of early modern Scottish history, the national, the international, and on top of that, the transnational. So I suppose it's really three throughout the 17th century, but especially circa 1700, when the two arguably converged. As someone with more than a single field of expertise, my current research projects are on one hand writing the political and intellectual biography of William Carstairs, and on the other hand to continue to explore Europeanization, in inverted commas, of what was to become British Atlantic in the 17th century. I have to think quite carefully about the sort of bigger picture of the various strands of my research, which have been labelled in the past in no particular order, as being too disparate, too European, too British, sometimes even, or too Atlantic to be really Scottish. And I'll happily admit that I am more interested in the bigger themes and patterns than in the minutiae of a particular event or type of history. And I am particularly interested in the question, so what? What does it all mean, and why should we care, really? Now, the relationship between the national, the international, and the transnational is, of course, not unique to Scottish history or any other kind of history, although I'd argue that around 1700, and for Scotland anyway, it was of specific relevance. I do not intend to address the Anglo-Scottish Parliamentary Union here, but I do want to note that in 1707, the inter and the transnational became national. In this, Scotland again was not unique. Union was the norm rather than the exception in early modern European state formation, as John Eliot and many others noted years ago, of course. So what I want to address here then is not so much the way that international conditions and influences impacted on developments and events at home, something that has been done quite effectively. But instead, I'd like to explore the question of how Scotland's early modern history played a role as part of international and transnational development. Scotland's position on the eve of the Union is very well known. Of course, internationally, the country was arguably part of two unions, the regal union with England in 1603 and a personal union with the Dutch Republic in the form of the King William III, although, of course, there are no formal status or implications to this. But Scots were also starting to make inroads into the emerging American empires, not only the English, and despite the failure of their venture, and Scotland maintained close connections with a variety of European nations, either formally or informally. And indeed, the dynamism of Scotland's foreign connections is something with which we are all very familiar in this room. And all this international tension then sat very awkwardly alongside the country's national position, which is a series of crises, arguably economic, religious, and political, and the number goes on, and drove the country to despair, as has been argued. It's not surprisingly, therefore, of course, that Scottish historians have favoured the international and the transnational story over the national. And historiographically, the international term, as Karen Bowie has phrased it, is riding high. The early modern diaspora project has done a great deal for understanding on both a European bilateral level and especially on a micro level through the detailed studies of individuals and their connections. And I think Steve's paper earlier was a very good example of that. And the scholarly dividends have been impressive. Networks in particular are a key part of this type of research, as are the scholarly communities abroad. These have been explored in cultural terms, and largely this has, of course, led to some very fine scholarship and a deeper insight at a granular level of individuals, groups, and communities abroad, and by implication, of course, of the situation in society at home. At the same time, historians have not lost sight of the social predicament in Scotland. The difficult context of a disastrous Dutch king, or capitalist protectionism in the Atlantic, war in Europe, and a number of false starts intellectually, to name a few recent examples, have all been acknowledged by other historians as hurdles on the road to success. And at this point, I want to make it very clear that I'm not criticizing, but simply diagnosing what I perceive to be a problem. I fear that we risk continuing and potentially even further developing a narrative of success in the face of adversity. Not so much by us, the professionals, by our students, and I certainly tend to fall into this trap, though that may say more about my own shortcomings as a teacher than about the profession, but also the wider public. And as a result, Scottish exceptionalism arguably still risks being confirmed rather than explored in what I would think is a more appropriate context, namely the wider patterns and in and comparisons with European history. And indeed, like Steve, I would say that Scotland was, early on Scotland, was very much a European nation, which must be considered in a wider North Atlantic framework, similar to the rest of Western Europe. And to illustrate what I mean by this, and to hopefully show that this can be done beyond the realm of the individual and their networks, I want to offer a case study from my own research in Scotland's Atlantic history on the position of Scots within a different yet connected set of spheres, beginning and ending with the ramifications of Scottish legal positions. Now, this illustration comes from my own work on the Scottish presence in Long Island. Although never a Scottish colony, the area was accorded to the original undertaker of Nova Scotia and his heirs as compensation for the loss of that colony, which came to a premature end as a result of the peace with France. The main holder of this land to Nova Scotia, Sir William Alexander Menstrie, later the Earl of Stirling, was given as compensation the area on both sides of the Long Island Sound. The problem with that was that this area was already claimed by both the Dutch in the Netherlands and the English in New England, led by John Winthrop and the Council of New England. And what ensued was a decade-long dispute between the Dutch and the English, which only came to an end after the First Anglo-Dutch War ended in the mid-1650s, leaving the Scots caught in the middle. But contrary to what one might expect, this Anglo-Dutch competition offered opportunity both for the legal claims on the area pursued by Stirling's heirs until deep into the next century, and for actual settlement and activity on the ground. It made it possible to explore some of the aspects of the Scottish position in the Stuart Atlantic, as any formal encroachment along the Long Island Sound and territory claimed by the Dutch derived from the legal arrangements concerning Nova Scotia. The grounds offered to the Earl of Stirling in compensation for the loss of his colony potentially posed a direct challenge to both the Dutch jurisdiction and the New England pretensions over Long Island. Accorded by counsel for New England, its legal status was arguably unclear, but in the contested borderlands of Long Island, there was scope for different legal interpretations of the claim. By implication, the underpinning of Scottish post-Nazi citizenship is being challenged, if not tested. There were several Scottish attempts at laying claim to the area, defying both Charles I's policy of British uniformity and the new English colonist plans. In 1637, Stirling tried to enforce his ground with help from George Cleves, one of the area's earliest English settlers. But his arrival was seen as a challenge to the English colonists' plan for expansion along Long Island and Long Island Sound, as well as the continuation of the Council for New England's policies, which favored aristocratic involvement through the sale of titles as a kind of colonial model that had been employed in Nova Scotia, and Cleves's attempt was aggressively rejected by the New Englanders. 2 years later, Stirling tried again, having commissioned an agent from Scotland, James Ferret, to act directly on his behalf. This time, Stirling's claim was recognised, and on the 17th of April 1640, Ferret patented the township of Southampton and Nantucket to a group of Englishmen and sold the grant to the Englishman Lyon Gardner, after he, Gardner, had already obtained an Indian grant. Stirling, however, died soon after. This entire enterprise benefited also from New English in the shape of John Withrop's direct involvement, as is made clear in what became known as Ferret's deed. Ferret's actions on behalf of his employer were a confirmation of the legality of Stirling's claim and an assertion of the right of Scottish sovereignty in dealing in colonial matters based on the original claim of Nova Scotia. Indeed, Ferret tried to extend Stirling's claim to the Dutch settlements on Long Island, but he was rejected by the director of New Netherlands and sent away. Moreover, it was also typical, thank you very much, of the development of a new legal framework concerning property rights in North America. Absentee claimants who effectively behaved like aristocratic landowners were rejected regardless of their royal titles in favor of peopling and planting, as it's been now called. Elements of the original Nova Scotia model could arguably be detected still in Ferret's deed, as both the royal claim and some of the colonial spoils remained with Stirling, and I quote from the deed: "But inasmuch as it has pleased our royal king to give and grant the patent of Long Island to the aforesaid Earl Stirling, in consideration thereof it is agreed upon that the trade with the Indians shall remain to the said Earl of Stirling to dispose of from time to time and at all times as best likely." However, the English settlers considered Ferret's deed a derivative grant, using it to place Long Island under Winthrop's management and extend their interest along the Sound at the expense of local Indian, Dutch, and aristocratic interests. Ferret's deed concerned only part of Long Island, however. While it placed some of the island under New English control, there remained English settlers under Dutch jurisdiction. In 1647, a veteran of Nova Scotia, Captain Andrew Forster from Dundee, accompanied by 36 Scottish colonists, appeared in Dutch territory to claim the remaining area, including Martha's Vineyard, on behalf of Stirling's widow, Mary. The Dutch considered it an attempt at extending Ferret's deed, and on production of James VI and First original grant to Stirling, and a power of attorney by his widow, the Dutch director and council of New Netherlands had Forrest arrested and sent to the Netherlands for trial, accused of testing the loyalty of the English settlers under Dutch jurisdiction. Forrest escaped, however, and was never seen again. 3 years later, the Treaty of Hartford was signed, confirming the English encroachments on Dutch Long Island and putting them under English jurisdiction. By the end of the First Anglo-Dutch War, then, Stirling's claim on Long Island had run its course, though that was not the end of the matter. While Ferret's deed was based on Scotland's ancient right on Nova Scotia, attempts at claiming Scottish rights with the Dutch failed. The disastrous end of the Covenanters' cause, the regicide of Charles I, and Scotland's subsequent enforced union with England had all but ended diplomatic relations between Scotland and the Netherlands. Stirling's deals with the New Englanders had not helped matters, and ironically enough, it was the acceptance of the Scottish claim by the New Englanders that also ended it. Following the death of Oliver Cromwell and the restoration of the Stuart monarchy in 1660, Stirling's heirs made an attempt at undoing the legal situation by revisiting both Nova Scotia and Long Island. In 1660, to the approach of the king, about compensation for the loss of the original colony and sort of investments, making a clear link to Scotland. Several patents and grants by James VI and Cromwell were recapitulated. And in the aftermath of Scotland's enforced political incorporation, under Cromwell, clear doubt had been expressed with regard to sovereign rights on the territory. And I quote, "If any doubt in which prince is the right of sovereignty, whether of England or France." This avenue appears to have reached a dead end soon after, but a year later, the 4th Earl of Stirling, Henry Alexander, petitioned the king against the Dutch presence on Long Island. Years later, the Council for Foreign Plantations promised Stirling to look into this. However, in response, the Earl of Clarendon negotiated a purchase of Stirling's territory for the Duke of York, the future James II, soon to be proprietor of New York, but which he incidentally never paid. He blatantly ignored Ferret's deeds and the New Englanders' interpretation of property rights, and instead used the original Scottish claim as a legal basis for his acquisition, while at the same time favouring the aristocratic model as he would in all his future colonial endeavours. This then looked like a return to the late 1620s, but despite subsequent tension with the New Englanders over this, the situation on the ground did not significantly change, and eventually James's government, of course, would be rejected in the wake of the Revolution of 1688-89. Now, despite the tensions over Stirling's claim, Dutch traders and merchants were always happy to collaborate with the Scots who settled in Dutch territory. The Scots had, of course, extremely strong and long-standing relations with the Dutch based on commerce, Calvinism, and cultural connections, including intellectual ones. If the Scots' attempts at making legal inroads in New Netherlands by using Stirling's claim had failed as experienced traders, they were welcomed. Around the same time, English commercial policy also was undergoing a change, initiated first by Cromwell's protectorate and continued after the Restoration. Its ultimate expression was, of course, a series of navigation acts passed in the second half of the 17th century. Intent on protecting English commercial interests, they were aimed as much as their rivals, the English, in particular. Sorry, let me start it again. Its ultimate expression was a series of navigation acts passed in the second half of the 17th century. Intent on protecting English commercial interests, they were aimed as much at their rivals, the Dutch in particular, as later on at the Scots. By the time New Netherlands was conquered by the English, for the first time in the 60s and the second time finally in the 70s, a number of commercially successful Scots were living in New Netherlands and had risen to hold important positions in its administration. Scottish-Dutch cooperation, in fact, peaked in those same 1660s and early 1670s, but continued after the Treaty of Westminster in 1674, which finally saw New Netherlands ceded to England for good. At the heart of this relationship was Scottish-Dutch mercantile and cooperation. As the 60s wore on, Dutch traders found it increasingly difficult to trade with New York for profit. Following the fall of New Netherlands, Scots in the area transferred their allegiance to the English, making them valuable partners for Dutch traders. More acceptable and more familiar than the English, Scots in New York became more than traditional cosmopolitans and boundary crossers, as people like that are often labeled, and now assumed a more formal role of factors and agents, especially when in 1667 a new measure was introduced by the governor of New York, issuing special passports for a very limited number of Dutch ships that could only be acquired at very high cost. While the English Navigation Act legally closed off the Atlantic for foreign Scottish and Dutch nationals, this was not the case for naturalised individuals. And as Wim Klooster has described, a popular method to circumvent those navigation acts was to register a ship or cargo name of a New Yorker to conceal Dutch ownership. It appears that Scots fulfilled this function for the Dutch, and they did that not only in New York but also in the West Indies. Increasingly, the Dutch thus came to rely on the significant number of Scottish merchants and related businessmen in the port cities of continental Europe and the Atlantic colonies. So what can we then include from all of this? Behaving as border crossers, the Scots benefited from their position as post-Nazi as far as England was concerned, and as traditional trading partners and co-religionists to the Dutch. Scots in Long Island were boundary crossers and cosmopolitans, but they also set up commercial networks and capitalized on their particular relationship with both the Dutch and the English, easily changing sides as the situation on the ground required. When New Netherland was lost to England, changed back to New Netherlands, and then finally it was ceded to England for good. So when you strip away the historical detail, what we have here, arguably, is a story of Scottish legal assertion to do with their citizenship and minority status as actors in a new, unfamiliar framework of empire building and colonial competition in the Atlantic in the 17th century, which was already a very crowded space. Although Scottish Atlantic aspiration far outstripped success, of course, Scots did matter as imperial participants. And much has been made of their commercial successes and the importance of their networks, and I'm coming back to my original point in a moment. However, I would suggest that we also need to look at the legal situation surrounding their citizenship status, and the way this influenced the formation of the English, later the British Empire on the ground. The disputed border between New England and New Netherlands provided the space necessary to turn the situation into one of Scottish legal and briefly sovereign assertion, a strategy employed more successfully by the Scottish proprietors of New Jersey in the later 17th century. But the most important opportunities arose following the fall of New Netherlands in 1664, first of all, when Scottish cosmopolitanism combined with post-Nazi citizenship, or at least its aftermath, in a formidable alliance that benefited all parties, but not all at the same time. This was, of course, not a uniquely Scottish tactic. There are similar stories to be told from many other non-dominant and non-national minority, if you will, groups of boundary crossers. Their legal wrangling is still to receive attention, and the Europeanization of the British Atlantic remains to be uncovered. Nevertheless, the Scots stand out on account of their legal position within the Stuart Empire. They were not like other boundary crossers. They had been having been an integral part of James VI and First British projection. They adhered to the legal policy of post-Nazi citizenship throughout the century and across the Atlantic. For this reason, they were recognized as valuable associates and partners. They operated within a unique legal framework which they helped to shape, test, stretch, and eventually reject, and which is crucial to understanding the development of the British Atlantic. Now, I would like to finish this paper then with the problem with which I started. How do we interpret Scotland's international connections in a way that allows us to move beyond the exotic, the bilateral, and the international, to assess Scotland's networks and other foreign contexts within a wider framework? I believe there is much to be learned from the comparative approach of the diaspora project, of course. But while this has taught us much about the outward-looking nature of early modern Scotland, it is now time to also ask questions beyond the conclusion of Scotland's culture of migration or the number of Scots abroad, about what this means for Scotland and for the wider processes and patterns which shape the early modern period, such as the Scottish Enlightenment and the formation of both the British state and the British Empire, the example I just mentioned, to name but two examples from my own work. Without wider historiographical, and dare I say theoretical engagement, Scottish history risks finding itself stuck in exoticism and exceptionalism and overlooked or at best marginalized by the wider discipline. In analogy with what Alan McInnes has called the need to connect policy and process, I would say that we must realign the national, the international, and the transnational to assess and possibly rethink not just state, but also look at, let me restart. In analogy with what Alan McInnes called the need to connect policy and process, we must realign the national, the international, and the transnational to assess and possibly rethink not just states, imperial formation. In my illustration regarding the Scots in Long Island, the legal position of the post-Nazi Scots originally conceived to deal with an internal British problem, combined with the particular position as partners to the Dutch, ended up having implications within the developing English Empire, reaching its high point around 1700 during the so-called legal war. The next step should be to make further comparisons with the Dutch and other European nations, of course, allowing us to uncover the wider global implications, not only the deviations and exceptions of the British Empire in this case, but also the patterns, trends, and common themes which help define and make the North Atlantic, European, and Scottish history